break or starting to garden.
We have expert advice on when to plant your vegetables.
If you're planning on planting tomatoes, cucumbers, peppers, now is a fantastic time.
And when it comes to your health, a look at spring's benefits, as well as the dreaded allergy season.
Plants are producing more pollen.
So stick with us as we help you spring into spring.
From our nation's capital, this is the National Weather Desk.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the National Weather Desk. I'm Angela Brown. This morning, we are celebrating the first day of spring. We're covering everything from tornado safety to the best ways to get your garden growing. Spring officially starts at 5:25 this evening Eastern Time. That's different from meteorological spring, which starts on March 1st. You may think April is the wettest month of the year, but that is not true. For most of the country, it's actually June. As you probably know, the start of spring is not a random date. It happens on the vernal equinox, which most often falls on March 20th. Meteorologist Marshall McPeak shows us what the equinox really means.
I'm meteorologist Marshall McPeak. We are coming up on the equinox. Happens twice every year. You know how this begins. We have the sun, and the earth travels around the sun once every year, and in the process we get seasons. But the reason we have those seasons is because the earth is tilted at 23.5 degrees. So when the southern hemisphere is tilted toward the sun, then we in the northern hemisphere have winter. When our part of the earth, the northern hemisphere, is pointed toward the sun, we get summer because more of the sunlight is directed at that part of the earth. But on the equinox, the sun appears to be directly over the equator. So that's when all of the earth has the same amount of daylight. It's almost as if our 23.5 degree tilt has been uprighted because it's hitting the earth perpendicularly. So on the equinox, we end up with equal day, equal night. Spring begins in the northern hemisphere on Monday at 5:24 in the evening. We're looking forward to seeing a whole lot warmer weather as we get into the next several weeks.
Spring is without question tornado season. Most tornadoes strike between now and June. The big question for you watching, do you have a tornado safety plan in place? Meteorologist John Gum has information to help keep you and your family safe.
Well, it is springtime across the country, and springtime means severe weather season. Unfortunately, we've seen damaging tornadoes causing not only damage but fatalities across the nation. So now's the time to prepare. Know what you would do in the event of a tornado. You got to have a severe weather plan, an emergency plan to take action. When a tornado watch is issued, that means we're watching for the possibility of tornadoes. The conditions are favorable for tornadoes in the watch area. But when a warning is issued, well, that's when you have to take action. And you want to have that emergency kit ready to go as soon as the watch is issued. But when the warning is issued, you have to get to your safe place ASAP, as soon as possible. Make sure, if this watch is issued before you go to bed, that you have some shoes ready to go. That's something folks don't think of because these tornadoes can create debris. And you don't want to be without your shoes if a tornado should hit and you have to step through all that debris. Also, if a warning is issued, make sure you get to your safe place. Where's that going to be? Well, the lowest floor of your home or business, the best place to be. Get as low as possible. If you can put as many walls between you and the outside of the home as possible, that's your best bet. So a hallway, under a stairway, in a bathroom, especially in the interior bathroom that doesn't have windows, even a closet. Those are some of the best places to be. Of course, in many parts of the country, we have basements. And if you have a basement, that is the absolute safest place you can be in the event of a tornado. For the National Weather Desk, I'm meteorologist John Gum.
Hurricanes in spring are rare, but they do form in the Atlantic from time to time in May. This map shows you the only hurricane since 1889. They include 1970's Hurricane Alma. It became a hurricane near Jamaica, but was downgraded to a depression by the time it made landfall north of Tampa, Florida. Spring is when most people think about getting outside and starting their backyard cleaning and even that vegetable garden. But before you head out, always keep nature in mind. Meteorologist Christina Ernie explains.
Now that we're headed into spring, you'll be finding yourself spending more time outside, but you're going to want to hold off before breaking out the rake or starting to garden. And it all has to do with the birds and the bees. Well, more specifically, the bees and our invertebrates like butterflies and insects. So March through May, these insects are nesting in your piles of leaves and brush left over from last season. The sensitive bee population is waiting for fruit tree blossoms before they emerge. So how do you know when it's safe to clean the yard so you don't harm them? It's easy. The 3 B's. Number 1, be patient. Even as the temperatures warm into the next few months, overnight temperatures are still cold. Wait until morning lows are in the 50s, which in New England happens in May. Another general rule of thumb is when it's safe to plant tomatoes, your bees are probably out and about and safe. Number 2, be observant. Your dried plant material is their home. They use it to protect their eggs or cocoons. And some species stay there actually until May after heavy spring rains are done. So if you hear of big storms or cold snaps on the way, wait until those pass. And finally, be respectful. These bees are pollinators. Without them, our flora suffers. So keep your green thumbs in your pockets until Memorial Day weekend, especially for the cooler states, that is, when it's safe to start gardening, and keep pets and insecticide away from these areas too. For the National Weather Desk, I'm Christina Ernie.
I'm meteorologist Amy Aronson here in Baltimore, Maryland, where it's still a little too cold outside to start planting your vegetable garden. But there's actually one part you can start inside, and it can save you a ton of money, and it's called seeding. To seed, you actually need seeds. So I started off by going to my local gardening shop and picking out a good variety. While I was there, I also got this nifty container of compartments to neatly organize my seeds. Soil is apparently very important. I picked out a fluffy, nutrient-rich organic soil, and then I put this in my container, putting just a little bit in each of the compartments. Next up, the seeds. I picked out tomatoes, green beans, cucumbers, and some cilantro. I put about 2 to 3 seeds in each compartment, topped it off with a little extra soil, watered it just a little bit before throwing on a lid to seal in all of this moisture. And then I picked out a sunlit window where it will sit for 6 to 8 weeks before the plants grow, and I can put them outside in my garden.
Of course, the risk of frost and freeze is still very rare in most parts of the country. Meteorologist Brandon Lawson has tips on how you can protect your plants from the cold.
And something we see during the spring season very often is that hard freeze or that frost that you have to protect your plants from quite often every single year. A lot of folks will use 5-gallon buckets to do this. Remember though, 5-gallon buckets are usually made of plastic, and that plastic can burn your plants. So you can actually harm your plants with the 5-gallon buckets. So what I suggest doing, use a frost cloth or a tarp first. Put that over your plant, then put the 5-gallon bucket over top of that, and that will provide that extra layer of protection, not only for protecting your plants from frost or the freeze, but can also protect your plants from that burning from the plastic of the bucket. You also can use lights to maintain heat with your plants too. If you have a big outdoor garden and you have a big tarp over it, you can put what's called brood lights in those tarp areas, and that can actually maintain heat of your garden. A lot of people will do this. Again, you can get a lot of these items at hardware stores. 5-gallon buckets, the frost cloths, the tarps, and the brood lights as well can all be found at those hardware stores to protect your plants this spring season.
Well, you know, it's spring when the cherry blossoms start to bloom. Here in Washington, D.C., the famous trees surrounding the tidal basin will be at their peak bloom later this week. They had a close call, though, over the weekend when overnight lows dipped into the 20s. But as you can see, the blooms are still healthy, with temperatures expected to be in the 70s on Thursday. The blooms should be ready for their big show. Cherry blossoms in Portland, Oregon are also getting ready to bloom a little later than D.C., though. So until then, here's a look at last year's blossoms.
Well, we're looking at a really nice Monday ahead. Spring officially arrives at 5:24 in the evening. We are going to see lots of sunshine for most areas across the Northeast. A bit of a frontal boundary up towards Canada. Could bring some snow showers up to far northern New England throughout the day Monday. Otherwise, notice lots of sunshine throughout the area. Temperatures, they are going to run in the 30s up towards Caribou, but most areas in the mid-40s to lower 50s throughout the Northeast.
I'm meteorologist Jonathan Myers, and here's a look at the Mid-Atlantic region. Starting off with a chill in the morning, lots of temperatures in the 20s and 30s, but by about lunchtime, we're in the 40s and less wind. It's going to be a better feeling day on Monday with high temperatures at a lot of spots in the upper 40s to low to mid 50s, sunshine. And on the cool side, latest weather maker is fair weather high pressure out west of St. Louis, and that's going to keep our weather nice and dry heading back to work and school. That's the scene here.
Hi, meteorologist Jennifer Collins here with a look at your southeast forecast. It's going to be a dry start to the week overall for most of the southeast. We'll see a few clouds develop heading into Tuesday for parts of the Mississippi River Valley. Otherwise, sunshine in store for most of South Florida. However, it's going to be a cool day ahead of us. Look where our afternoon highs head. It's the 50s for areas of Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, and even the Carolinas. Into the low 70s across South Florida, 73 degrees in West Palm Beach.
You are watching the National Weather Desk.
Well, gardening is one of the most popular hobbies in the country. So if you're looking to grow fruits or vegetables this year, what should you do right now to help make your garden a success? Meteorologist Amy Aronson has some great tips from an expert.
I'm here with an expert. Carrie Engel is going to help me out to make my garden very successful.
Very
this
good.
year. I want lots of fresh veggies.
All right. Well, one, don't rush it. So believe it
Okay.
or not, it's still a little early for most things. You could go out right now and plant potatoes and onions and asparagus, rhubarb, some of the things that come back every year. But most of the stuff you still want to wait for until all danger of frost is gone. So depending on where you live, it's anywhere from late April to about Mother's Day.
Okay, big range there.
Big range there, exactly. And it's because, I mean, you know from the weather, the different temperatures you see every morning.
Exactly.
It's going to change from the coast up to the mountain areas. We're right here on the Piedmont Plateau, so we kind of
Up and
get right in the
down.
middle of it, yeah.
Up and down. Are there things people can start doing right now so they're ready once it's warm out?
Well, one of the things I really suggest is doing a soil test. Now, you can do it for nitrogen, phosphorus, and potash, which are the three major elements that your garden needs.
Right.
But the main thing is to do it for pH. If you've ever had a pool or an aquarium, you know how important pH is.
Oh, yeah.
Well, it's just as important to vegetables. So certain plants grow better in a neutral pH. So in most cases, you want something between a 6.5 and 7. So you want to add some lime to the soil to get it where it needs to be.
Okay, good tip there. What about seeding? I know that's something I'm going to start at my
Okay.
house. How does that work? Should people start doing that before planting outside?
Well, it depends what we're talking about. So at this point, I'm going to tell you it's probably too late to start seeds for things like broccoli, cabbage, cauliflower, because they can go out pretty soon.
Okay.
But if you're planning on planting tomatoes, cucumbers, peppers, now is a fantastic time. It's really good because you have about 2 months to get them going, and you can get them in and started in some of these little seed starting trays that we have down around the corner, but in a good seed starting soil that's nice and lightweight, real fine material. And you can start, again, those tomatoes, peppers, things like that. You can also direct seed some things, so things like peas, you can go out right now and plant.
Okay.
Beans, you can plant directly too, but you're going to want to wait until Mother's Day-ish for that as well. Yeah.
Good to know. What about tips for making your garden successful once we get to that point?
Okay, so as much organic matter as you could add, the better. So if you have your own compost, that's fantastic. If you have a friend with a llama, you can take llamas.
Just get a llama.
Yeah, get a llama. You can take that, put it right in the garden. If you're using any manures, horse manure, cow manure, you need to let it sit for a year so it's not too high in nitrogen. It doesn't burn things. But any organic matter you add is wonderful.
And last question, easiest veggies to grow if you're a beginner like me and you just want to get something growing this season.
Well, you and I were talking before. I think cucumbers are right there. Cucumbers, squash are pretty easy. You can get at some of the mini watermelons. They're good. The tomatoes just take more time. And, they need some more food. They need that sunlight. And also kind of when you plan your garden, go from the short plants to the tall plants so you're not shading.
Good tips,
good
tips.
little guys.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much.
All righty, thank you.
Yeah, and happy growing, everybody. Hopefully we're all successful and lots of veggies growing this spring season.
And when it comes to outdoor plants and fruits, a late March freeze can always be a risk. Meteorologist Chicago Windler went to a berry farm near Austin, Texas over the weekend to find out how to protect precious plants.
Spring has sprung in the Texas Hill Country, and despite Mother Nature's melodramatics, this year's early crops are nothing short of exceptional.
It's awesome up here. This place is beautiful. The tulips are amazing. The strawberries are just coming in. It's perfect.
Strawberry season will typically last through about mid-May.
Farmer Lacey Garcia is following in her dad's footsteps and knows March weather can be fickle.
We are concerned with a late freeze coming up. That always scares us, late March. Thankfully, if you see the sandbags out here, those are for frost covers. We'll put huge white blankets out over the field, and that gives us about 5 to 8 degrees freeze protection.
And those degrees make all the difference.
Strawberry plants are hardy, there's some debate, but anywhere from 0 to 15 degrees. But the blooms, they will die at 32.
Meanwhile, the tulips like cool temps.
How many tulips? 330,000.
Last year, the whole crop was a loss due to too much rain at the wrong time.
Tulip bulbs are very particular. They did not like that, and we had about 15 tulip plants come up for the whole season.
That's right, only 15 of hundreds of thousands of bulbs. This year was redemption. What a show they put on. And as tulip season ends, these blooms called ranunculus are next in line.
It's really hard to work in a place with this beautiful atmosphere and not just feel joy of your surroundings. It's really awesome.
In Marble Falls, Texas, I'm Chicago Windler for the National Weather Desk.
The start of spring does have an impact on your health, both good and bad. Theron Zahn is in Seattle to explain.
The arrival of spring doesn't just mean a break from wintertime weather. It actually has an effect on our bodies. We produce less melatonin in spring, which improves our mood and can mean less depression. We also increase the production of serotonin. That also lifts our mood, and we get extra vitamin D from the extra daylight. One health drawback to the arrival of spring, a lot more allergies.
Spring officially starts today, but in many areas, the pollen is already out in full force. So are longer allergy seasons here to stay? And what can you do right now to reduce the risk? Meteorologist Sonia Stevens finds out.
Sneezing, sniffling, coughing. For those that suffer from seasonal allergies, these symptoms can last from the spring through the fall.
People frequently focus on the yellow, and that tends to be a pine pollen, which really interestingly, because of the size of that pine pollen, is not a respirable allergen. So while it can sort of, mistakenly be perceived as such, it tends to be more of the cedars and the oaks and the willows and a variety of other things.
This time of year, it's the trees. The growing season for everything is longer, according to a recent study by Climate Central, which ultimately means longer exposure to their allergy-inducing pollen.
In the presence of more carbon dioxide, that is one of the greenhouse gases that is causing climate change, plants are producing more pollen. So we're not only having our plants produce for longer, they're producing more.
It's a trend, especially across the eastern half of the country, according to Climate Central. We are already seeing the impact in our area.
Seasons are a really tangible way that people see how the climate is changing today, and that it's not a future problem. It's something that we're all experiencing right now.
Which is why now is a good time for allergy sufferers to get to the root of the problem.
The importance of seeing a board-certified allergist or ENT for the purpose of identifying what a person is uniquely allergic to.
The spring full moon won't be out for a few weeks, but when it does appear, it comes with a history of many different names. Meteorologist Cheryl Lemke explains.
Thursday, April 6th, will mark the first full moon of the spring season, and it's known as the pink moon. The moon is not actually pink, but it's given that name by northern Native Americans because the full moon coincides when a species of wildflower is in bloom. Early in the spring, a prevalent blooming wildflower called creeping phlox or moss phlox is commonly seen, and it is pink in color. Other names for April's full moon are sprouting grass moon, the egg moon from the Dakota Indians because April is the month that geese often lay eggs, and finally the fish moon, a term used by many coastal tribes.
And now time for a short break, but as we go, let's take a look at some spring flowers on Alabama's Gulf Coast.
Well, a very good Monday morning, everyone. I'm meteorologist Andrew Buck-Michael taking a look at your forecast across the Midwest and your weather story. Not a lot going on for us for the day today. Pretty quiet for most of the Midwest. Our next weather maker, though, starts moving in. We've got snow in the Dakotas, rain moving into the Ozarks and to the south here. That continues kind of slowly drifting its way into the Ohio Valley and Great Lakes by Wednesday. And cold air across the plains, still dealing with highs in the 20s on Wednesday.
Good Monday morning. I'm meteorologist Joe DiCarlo. Look at our forecast across the region. We will start mostly cloudy, a few showers around San Antonio, up towards Abilene and Amarillo to start the day. As we head towards the afternoon, most of the shower activity does dissipate, but we'll see a little bit of rain around DFW this afternoon. High temperatures on the chilly side, 50s and 60s for afternoon highs. As we head overnight, a batch of showers up across Oklahoma, temperatures falling to the 40s, otherwise 50s and 60s for overnight lows.
I'm meteorologist Rebecca Stevenson. Here's what's happening across the West. Much cooler temperatures here. As spring gets going, we're going to have temperatures drop 10 to 15 degrees across the West. This includes California that just dealt with one system, now pushing rain. And through the Pacific Northwest, it's turning into mountain snow, especially for the Rockies and up into Utah and Idaho. The Wasatch getting hit hard, but already tracking the next storm slated to slam into California for Tuesday. That's the scene from here.
You are watching the National Weather Desk.
The West Coast has seen some major winter storms in recent weeks, and Seattle residents are preparing for the annual Skagit Valley TULIP Festival. Lee Stoll has a look at how the winter weather could impact the timing of the big bloom.
The festival is now just over 2 weeks away, and in the fields here behind us, you may not be seeing more than just green right now, but don't worry. Growers say the tulips are just playing it safe. Lowland snow recently gave growers in Skagit Valley a bit of a scare.
We were a little bit worried.
The annual Tulip Festival is a deeply rooted event and a sure sign of spring, but the last few weeks have not warmed up. Temps have trended cooler than normal.
The bloom is still down, tucked beneath the earth, so right now you just have the edges of the leaves that are up above the surface.
The big question every year, will the peak of color be early or late?
Just dropping below freezing isn't going to be a big issue. It'll slow down the bloom, the progress of the flowers. So right now we're trending a little bit late on the calendar, but we've got a lot of time for things to catch up quickly.
The flowers seem to sense what's happening and for now are safe underground.
If it freezes, they're just fine down there.
And thank you so much for joining us. Another atmospheric river will bring more rain and snow to California overnight. Tomorrow, we bring you the latest from the West Coast. I'm Angela Brown. Make it a great Monday. We'll see you right back here tomorrow. Happy spring.